Well, we may have just recorded a video on the Fantasy Premier League and the reviews and previews and all that sort of thing, but that doesn't mean we're going to abandon doing Formula One videos and Formula One reviews. Of course not. So here we are. We are here for Baku 2025 review. And, well, before we start, really get into it, I sort of want to talk about it, like my experience of Baku this weekend, because, well, I completely forgot that it was on a little bit earlier than the rest of them. Completely forgot, and so as a result, I had to, because I had other things that was going on at the same time. So I was one of those that had to watch the highlights a few hours later, so that I, at least got a good flavour of the race. And when I say the highlights, I don't mean like the 10-minute video. I mean like I think it was like a 45 minutes, so that you get pretty much the full details of what was going on without some of the boring bits in the middle. And so I did what anyone does when it comes to reviews, almost go into complete, what do they call it? Black spot mode, off the grid. Make sure I don't load any news sites and stay off YouTube to ensure that I do not see a single review or single situation that happened. And I was successful in doing it. And I'm glad I was successful in doing it because, my God, whilst it wasn't the most exciting or exhilarating race, how many headlines? And apart from one of them, we're actually going to touch on all of these. There's one we're going to miss out on because it feels like a one-off. But these were so big, they almost had to be discussions in themselves. But again, a lot of big talking points to talk about. As you can imagine, talking points, you're going to talk about them. Anyways, if you would like to talk about, any big moments yourself, feel free to pop a comment below and pop a like and everything like that. But let's start off with the one that's been almost like the biggest debate point. And I'm going to take my headphones off for this. The biggest debate point of the lot. Oscar's first DNF this season. Oscar's first DNF for almost 2 seasons, in fact. 44 races, finishing in the points. He did well, but not this one. And there's a lot of talk about, did it get to Oscar? Did the pressure get too much for him? And I'm going to say that with this crash, no. This wasn't the pressure getting too much for him. Baku is one of those circuits that it's very tricky to navigate. It's very easy to go into the wall. And especially given it was so cold, seemed to be very slippery. And it was one of those that, slightly being too late on the brakes and you were done for. And it was proven this over the whole weekend. Just focus on qualifying for a bit. Alex Albon, Nico Hulkenberg, Franco Colapinto, Ollie Behrman, Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc, all of them went into the wall in qualifying. And more went into the wall during practice in Norris and in, I think Hamilton maybe even went into the wall potentially. It was tricky. Absolutely tricky time. So I do not think that the pressure necessarily got to Oscar Piastri when it came to this incident. But I do think the pressure did get to him for one incident. This one. The false start. They say that some drivers see red. Well, for Oscar, it was the opposite. He didn't see red when the red was still there. The red lights were still definitely clearly on. And the fact that it was so out of character and so sudden and so soon was wild. Now, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because Lando Norris was ahead of him and he was like, right, of all the cars, it's going to be tricky for me to overtake. It's going to be Lando Norris, so I need to make sure I nail the start. And as a result, he was too soon. I don't know. But edgy. Very, very edgy. And very unlike Oscar Piastri. Look, I have been supporting him as the one I think is going to win the title. And that's great. But that doesn't mean he's above criticism. And this weekend, he has had a very, very off weekend. Now, if it was just a qualifying where it was slippy, really slidey, and the instant way he went into the wall, I'd forgive him for that. And again, I forgive him for the instant on the Sunday in terms of him hitting the wall because it just is what it is. But this was a bit weird. Like anyone who's been watching the races knows that Lando's not great off the start anyway. Oscar Piastri didn't need to do anything special or exciting. He just needed to be decent at the start, and I think he would have got the run on Lando. But he completely ruined his own race. Now, thankfully, the 5-second penalty is not going to hang on over into Singapore, but Singapore's another track where things are tight, and Oscar does seem to struggle around those. So it'll be really interesting to see, is this going to be a situation where it hangs over his head for a little while? I think we're going to see not necessarily the answer in Singapore, but I think the race after Singapore will probably get the answer we're looking for as to how much this is getting to Oscar. We're getting to the countdown now. We're getting to the final races. And Oscar still has 25-point lead. So he's still got some wiggle room to go. So yes, we'll probably get a better idea as to how things go after the Singapore Grand Prix. But Lando didn't do well either. In fact, so badly Lando Norris did that people are now genuinely wondering if Max Sneaky Max is starting to join the party. Now, do you know what's interesting is after I watched the highlights of the race, I had it almost as like it's a hot take. No one else is going to think that Max Verstappen's got a chance of winning the title. Not in that Red Bull, not in that dog that can barely drive. Absolutely not. And then I watch reviews and everyone else is saying it. I'm like, okay, maybe it's also a hot take. Okay, I'm cool with that. But something's clicked. I don't know what it is. I genuinely do not know what it is that has clicked. But it's not just Max. It's Red Bull as a whole. Now, look, we could look at Yuki Tsunoda and think, oh, he lost out to Liam Lawson, but he was still competitive. Very competitive. What is it? Max is 60-odd points behind Oscar Piastri. 40-odd points behind Lando Norris. Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, it was a Top Gear episode, and the one where they're racing at an ice track. And the quote that basically said, whilst me and, from Jeremy Clarkson, that said, whilst me and Richard Hamilton were busy knocking 7 bells out of each other, James May was sneaking up. And I think this is going to be the situation. Forget Oscar Piastri seething if he loses out by a couple of points because of what happened with regards to, Lando Norris has had a bad pit stop. Can you give up your position on him? If Oscar Piastri loses the title to Max Verstappen by a couple of points, McLaren are going to get cooked by everyone. They had their chance. They blew it. And I think McLaren's got one race wiggle room. If Max gets more points than both of the McLaren drivers and starts sneaking up, McLaren has to have a serious conversation with their drivers about going, right, we need to put all our eggs in one basket for a lead driver. Give them the best. Give them absolutely everything they need. So if you want the best strategy, you want to be given the best strategy, you better have the lead. This is edgy times for McLaren. I need to have a look into this. This could be not just Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris's only opportunity at winning a world championship. This could be McLaren's only opportunity to get a world championship winning driver. Next year, everything's going to be all up in the air. McLaren needs to be careful that they don't end up gifting a title to a Red Bull driver when it was so easily could have been theirs. And just to add a little bit of fuel to the mix, the past two races, Ferrari has scored more points than McLaren. To the point where potentially, if crazy scenarios happen, Ferrari could start creeping up on McLaren. Now, that's certainly less likely. But if I was Zach Brown, if I was Andreas Stella, this is the time to go. We need to just look at our strategy here. Is papaya rules working right now for us? By the way, things can change. People are mocking papaya rules. Papaya rules was fine, right? But sometimes you have to look at this amazing strategy and go, do we need to adjust it? It happens in sports all the time. Do we need to adjust our strategy? Do we need to adjust the way that we approach things? Every now and again, something that started out as amazing might end up going stale. And this could be the part where McLaren just needs to have a look and goes, is there a papaya rule or two that we just need to review? And by the way, I'm just going to say this. Whoever wins this feels like 2021 all over again. Whoever wins it out of these three, it will be one hell of a season. If Oscar Piastri wins the world title, he has basically gone from being the rookie driver to completely overshadowing his teammate, winning at the at the expense of his teammate. Almost getting a repeat of what happened in 2007. By the way, 2007, exactly the same thing happened. Two title rivals knocking 7 bells out of each other. Kimi Raikkonen comes up the inside, steals it from everybody. We've been here before. But Oscar Piastri, it'd be an amazing title if he wins it. Lando Norris, he is basically having to do a bit of a comeback here. So if he wins the title, it'll be amazing on Lando Norris. And despite it potentially being his 5th World Championship title, and he's done it before, if Max wins this World Championship, this eclipses last year. Because this isn't a year where Red Bull had the best car for half the season, and now and then at the second half they don't. We've seen it in practice and everything like that. Red Bull still don't have the fastest car. They've never had it the entire season. And Max is plugging away, getting closer, sneaking up the inside. This World Championship battle has gone from being one of those rivalry ones where, Nico Rosberg versus Lewis Hamilton, or Sebastian Vettel versus Mark Webber, or I was about to say Schumacher and Barrichello, but that really didn't count the same way, or Schumacher versus Hakkinen, Senna versus Prost. One of those rivalry ones where you're on one side or the other, to now just becoming a bit of an intriguing prospect. As much as I hated the way it ended as a Hamilton fan, 2007 was one of the craziest and best championships ever, because of the fact that the person that no one expected to win won it. We could see a repeat of 2007. We could see a repeat of, was it 2010, where Sebastian Vettel came from nowhere to win his first championship. We love seasons like that, where it was like, where the hell did that come from? And we potentially could have that with Max Verstappen. So whoever wins the world title out of these three drivers, which it probably is going to be these three drivers. By the way, if we just suddenly drop that Charles Leclerc or Lewis Hamilton or George Russell or Kimi Antonelli just absolutely storms the last few races and wins the world title, mind blown. I'm not ready for it, right? But right now, we are in for a very intriguing championship battle if Max Verstappen continues his form up. It's wild. And speaking of wild, the main one. It's interesting that things have switched around. We talk about the lesser, drivers of the lesser teams getting, and giving them glory. Well, and we would normally do that at the start. Well, we're now doing it at the end, because what a podium for Carlos Sainz. Now, people are joking at Ferrari's expense and going, how crazy is it that Carlos Sainz got a podium before Lewis Hamilton, blah, 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 blah. But let's talk about something else. In how wild this season has been. We've still got 9 races to go. We've had a Kick Sauber podium. We've had a Visa Cash App RB podium for Nico Hülkenberg and Isaac Hadjar, respectfully. And now we've had a first Williams podium since 2020? When this Williams podium came up, right, I had to have a little bit of a look back, flashback, because I remember making a prediction about Williams getting a podium. I said that Williams would get 5 podiums in 2026. And I've got to be honest, at the start of this season, I was nervous about that. But now, since this podium, since Sparkles Sainz got his podium, I'm not saying it's so bad about that. And considering the forfeit that was going to happen if I didn't get the 5 podiums right, which you'll have to see the YouTube short, I'm glad that this is more likely to happen. It's incredible for Carlos, but it's incredible for Williams because of how much work they've had to put in. They were slowly but surely losing out on money hand over fist, losing sponsors, losing money to the point where it was getting crazy. And of course, it was sad to see Claire Williams basically have to give up the Williams team to, that group. And yes, a part of Williams has died in the sense of no one from Williams is taking charge of Williams anymore. But it's amazing to see Williams back where they belong, back where they've been since the 80s. And they're continuing this thing of getting podiums every decade and still being that team, the plucky underdog, the team that was, whilst everyone else was a manufacturer team or a customer team, Williams was one of those that was like, we're going to be here just for the love of racing, nothing else. Williams isn't selling anything because Williams is just the team. That's it. Frank Williams' dream. And it lives on. How amazing. I cannot have no one has anything bad to say about this. Whether for Carlos Sainz, who lost out his seat in Ferrari unfairly last year, or for Williams, who has basically gone through so much hell and he's now back in a podium position. Amazing. And now all that's left is them to get those 5 podiums next year. I really hope they do. I really do. I don't want to be a Duracell bunny. But guys, those are certainly the big talking points that I found from Baku. Love to know your thoughts, your opinions on everything that happened. Pop them in the comments below. If you love the video, give it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you love Formula 1 content and Premier League content, because that's basically what we're going to be doing every week, a video on both. And until next time, guys, take care of yourselves, and we have a week break before the craziness of Singapore next week. Take care.